on Facebook. We should be on YouTube right now. So, um, yeah, good morning, everybody. If this is working for you, let us know in the chats so that way we know. I'll check and see. It says I just got a notification. It says that we're doing it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So there it is. Looks like we're doing it. Okay. And good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is Drawing for Tattooers. I'm James Wisdom. It's July 10th, 2023. And if you're joining us for the first time, make sure to hit like and subscribe. We love it when new people can come and join us. Again, welcome to Guy Atchison's Reinventing the Tattoo community, where tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious are all encouraged to join in these live stream and real world events. Our aim is to inspire and ultimately create better art and tattoos together. Now, we beam out nearly every single day, and with your help, we've become a quality network of live and on-demand content. So, I will share my screen as I like to do. Here we go. This one. Almost got the hang of it.
Almost.
Almost. But, here we go. Yeah. And Kyle's joining us today. So we'll say welcome to Kyle, and we'll continue. Yeah, this is the homepage of Reinventing the Tattoo. This is, of course, Guy Etchison's platform for his educational content, as well as a whole community, right, of other like-minded tattooers and apprentices. Everyone is really interested in learning and helping each other progress in your career and your art making. And so on here you can find all sorts of resources. There's a community, like I said. There's also courses that you can enroll in, all kinds of interesting content and stuff for you. And so if we scroll down, you can see that there is a Reinventing the Tattoo app featured right here. You can find this app at the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. We have lots of other shows that you can that you can find, of course, here. This is here's like our sort of scrolling. It's loading, but here's our scrolling sort of replays of all the other content that's been going on, because Reinventing the Tattoo has been going strong for years. You can also find us on Roku. At the bottom of the homepage, there's an events schedule. So if you'd like to join in one of these live, Zoomed events, you can always click these buttons here. So yeah, we're also a podcast. You can find us on Spotify or wherever you find your podcasts at. Right. So just one more plug for the Reinventing the Tattoo. There is professional development courses from 20 world-class tattooers. And so always updating stuff. Be sure to check out. Yeah. You can even ask Guy, right, about your personal goals and stuff. Computer a little bit. And so let's go through, and I'll plug some of our shows, upcoming events that are regular scheduled programming. At 1 p.m. on Sundays, we have Skilled Building Sundays with Jason Weiser. On Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern, we have Drawing for Tattooers with James Wisdom. That's me. That's this show. You made it. At 11 a.m., we have the Tattoo Weekly. That's followed at 5 p.m. on Mondays with Let's Talk About Feelings, Robbie Ripple. At 9 p.m. Eastern, we have the subscribers exclusive drawing group. That's always a good time. And so please, consider joining the subscribers exclusive drawing group. Um, yeah, Mondays are a big day here. So I'm so glad you could join us. 1 p.m. Wednesdays, we have the Tattoo Now show. And at 6 p.m. Eastern, we have the Tattoo Collecting 101 podcast. So we'd like to take a moment and recognize our sponsors. Let's see here. Yeah, World Tattoo Events. WorldTattooEvents.com is the largest, most comprehensive resource for tattoo events worldwide. Lots of updates as conventions are rescheduling like crazy. So you can always find out about the most recent and most upcoming tattoo conventions and tattoo events at WorldTattooEvents.com. Tattoo Now. Tattoo Now, technologies for tattooers, the leading edge in professional development management, as well as digital tools for tattooers of all levels. Upgrades competitive with any CRM mailing list software out there. So check out Tattoo Now. Ask for Gabe. You'll be glad you did. Guy Etchison. We'd like to, of course, recognize Guy Etchison and thank him for being the founder and inspiration behind Reinventing the Tattoo. You can learn more about Guy Etchison by visiting GuyAtchison.com, where you can find paintings, prints, tattoo machines, as well as learn about Guy himself and his story of being a painter and his journey through the tattoo world. Right, so yeah, just make sure that you leave us, your positive reviews, your constructive feedback, in the chats. We love to get it. And so with that, I would like to stop my sharing, and we can chop it up. Hey, gang, good morning.
Good morning.
So great for you to be able to join us today. So how's it going?
Can't complain.
Not everybody at once. Creature, you're muted. I can't unmute.
Oh, better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Hello, everybody.
Morning.
Hello.
Creature.
This is cool. So we set it up in our waiting area. My wife's here. Say hi, wife.
Hi.
Hello.
So we have the television on, and it has all of us, and I'm watching you guys, and this is very cool. Very, very cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's kind of meta, right? You're kind of we're watching ourselves while watching ourselves. It's awesome. So
There's a little delay, but it's great. So
hell yeah.
how's everybody's week?
Busy.
That's not bad.
Busy.
Right.
How about you, Kyle? How you doing?
Doing all right. Started on the swan sleeve. Didn't get as much done as I wanted to, but we just worked with what we had and the time frame that we had and everything like that. So that went pretty well. And just drawing on designs, trying to stay busy, the same old. So
Rock and roll.
Yeah. Awesome.
What about you, James?
Yeah, I started a sleeve. Well, I extended a sleeve this week. That was it was a lot of fun.
Uh-huh.
Butterflies and clouds and moons and stuff like that. It was one moon. It wasn't multiple moons, but that would be kind of cool, right? To do like a multi-moon sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that was a fun project that I'm getting started. Had a great session on that. I finished up one this week too. It was like I may have shown it before. It was like a big tree sleeve. It's just about done. So
Heck yeah, dude. That's
fun.
awesome.
And then lots of walk-ins. So appointments and walk-ins and stuff. And so
That's huge.
ended up being lots of fingers yesterday. Some days it's fingers. You know what I mean? but it was good. Yeah, it was a really good week. So, Elise, how about you? How was your week?
Oh, my week sounds boring compared to all of you guys's. Yeah, I've just been doing a lot of birthday shopping. I have so many birthdays the next coming months that like shopping is a chore. I have two this week. I think I have two next week. And then I think I get a week breather and then I get like three in a row. So it's,
Holy cow.
yeah, I have a lot of birthday. I've shopped for hardly anybody.
Yeah,
That's a lot of
no,
birthdays.
no good deed, right?
My birthday's in 2 days.
Oh God.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
I'll be younger. I'm going that way.
Oh, nice. We're Benjamin buttoning it.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's
I know
excellent.
too many cancers.
We're some moody people. We're great at art, though.
Yeah, yeah, very true.
Fascinating. Um, I don't know, like, I don't know the relationship between like, astrology and art making. Um, what it like, somebody fill me in. I want to know more. Help me understand this. Where's the connection at?
We release
Uh,
our emotions through some sort of medium, and it comes off as an expression, which becomes art.
True, and some are said to be more likely to be more creative than others.
Oh,
Cancer's very creative.
fascinating.
Uh, Taurus, not as much, but you might just be in a different niche.
Hmm.
I've seen
Yeah,
Taurus artists, yeah, but different breed.
definitely.
I'm a Virgo, so I'm not sure if I'm good at art or not, but we'll see. It
Detail
remains to
oriented.
be seen. So,
Detail oriented.
um,
Definitely.
I play one on YouTube. So, but no, you know what? I what I had the other day. So, if everybody wants, I'd love it if we could maybe draw for just a few. But yeah. Download. Yeah, cool. So
Insert elevator music. There
is
we go.
we'll see
Oh,
if we'll see if it'll share. I would love it if I could share this screen with you. But yeah, cool. So there's that. So the abyss. Right. Anyways, so it was like, I had, of course I did it to myself, but like just opened up, we're just like, opening up. It's the first tattoo of the day. And of course I schedule like this very delicate line work, behind an ear, you know, because why not? Why not do that? Like right when you roll into, right when you roll into work. And so, it like, it occurs to me, I'm like, oh my God, this is so intricate, so delicate. My customer is, what she said, has really great expectations for it, right? So they are, a customer of discernment, right? So of course, as they all are, should be, you should demand high quality. Anyway, so before I got started, right? I hadn't done any drawing in the morning yet. I didn't get a chance to, like all of the busyness of the day. And so but I practiced my ellipses. I, it's it's something I really do it, and I know that it helped a little bit. There's always room to improve, right? But I want to say that I want to posit that this was a helpful thing for me, getting warmed up. So I warmed up by doing these elliptical exercises. So just around the track, right? And I did these ones, kind of an atomic structure. Maybe kind of boring, I guess. Maybe rudimentary. Maybe they're not even aesthetic. But I also had a goal, right? And my goal was like, I always say, let's do 50 of them. So that's what I did, right? I just went ahead and did it. I did 10 of these ellipsy things, and it was, since there's 5 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Did 10 of them, that ended up being 50. And so, something that I thought was, I was mindful of was, of course, they're crude, but I was also getting warmed up, getting out, working out the kinks, moving my shoulder around, focusing my breathing and my vision. 5. And then I also started going like in different directions. Some were gonna, be counterclockwise, and some were clockwise. And then sometimes I started with the horizontal one, sometimes the vertical one. 5. Start with the circle. Try that out. It's challenging, I think.
Yeah.
Practice these. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. There's probably always going to be some inconsistency. 5 somewhere. But, rather than going into my tattoo like totally cold, took a moment and got a little bit warmed up. This wasn't exactly the subject that I was tattooing, but I mean, there was some curves and stuff to it. And again, it's like anybody that tattoos, anybody that makes art in a specific way will know that like this doesn't give you everything. There's no substitute for experience, and you're gonna bump up against it, right? There's gonna be contingencies and things that you aren't really sort of, you can't account for all the time. Even if it's something that you've done a million times, there's gonna be something. 1, 2.
It's a good
It
way to
feels
get the
awkward
bad pancakes out.
What's that?
It's a good way to get the bad pancakes out before.
I love that.
The first pancake's always the worst.
For sure. 4 and 5. How many do we do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 more of these. Mhm. But I think also, it can be very, it can be a bit of like sort of almost calming effect that it can have, as well. Even though you're warming up, even though you're sort of, you're becoming more engaged, it can be a sort of a focus that starts to come out of it. Anyway, for those of you who may be listening to us in podcast form, which could happen. Some, you know what I mean. We do it as a podcast, so it is like possible that there's a podcast listener or two out there. Anyway, if that's you, we're drawing ellipses right now. Ellipses are like oval shapes. The other way to think of an ellipse is a circle seen in perspective. Anyway, I think I did 10 of those, something like that. Um, uh, so yeah, they're not good, but also I don't care. I don't. I do think that it's, um, there's all sorts of ways to warm up. This is a way that I like to warm up, and I think whatever it is that you're doing, you know, a little bit of practice, of course, can be very beneficial, but also, um, you know, taking some of the pressure off and just being able to sort of loosen up, have an experience of, like, I don't know, pure joy in your drawing. I think that can also be really pretty good. And so, something else that I also like to sort of do, because that's very, there's a real sort of there's a flowy movement to those ellipses. Um, the other thing that I do like to do is I like to try to draw. Oh God, try to draw a straight line. Let's see. You know what I mean? I think another nice way to practice it is you can actually use a ruler or this sort of straight line function in Procreate, and then that could give you a target to try to line on top of. It's extra hard if you pick up the shoulder, you pick up your whole arm and try to move it, in this mechanical way. Oh my God, that's terrible. It's all right. Yeah, how do you do it? Yeah, I mean, if you're really all braced up and stuff like that, and you're really, there's a bit of bracing. You can learn how to do it, pretty well. But of course, I think think about your breathing. Think about how you're moving your body back and forth. Um, Also the speed too. I like when I'm doing this to really like sort of slow it down and make it real hard. If you go fast, you might end up doing it slightly better. But how about you slow it down and try to work through how you would breathe through it. Probably can't hold your breath the whole time. I've heard different thoughts about this, but you can also, as you're beginning a line, you can exhale through it, and that a little bit better. But I mean, if you're like hyperventilating, through it, that can cause a bit of like sort of unintended shakiness and movement. Um, but yeah, going just moving your arm around.
Isn't the hyperventilating like a typical breathing exercise? Like when you're tattooing, isn't that a pretty common thing?
I think so. But when you're drawing and trying to draw these crisp lines that are linear, I think it can affect them, right?
Listen, if my
And
artist isn't
if you're tattooing,
hyperventilating,
you may not want to be the hyperventilator while you're.
Don't worry,
No.
it's normal. It's okay.
This is fine. Everything's fine.
that was a required part. To go make some phone calls.
Well, quit looking at my screen, everybody. Hopefully, you're looking at your own thing. And
It's not about the quality, it's about the practice.
Well, but that's like being the demonstrator. There's it wasn't too bad. but again, I'm just slightly touching. It's
I like it's definitely interesting. Like, not worried so much about just like the quality of it, just like more of like the motion of it. You know what I mean? Like when you're doing like the ellipticals and everything like that, just more of like making sure that you're like doing different angles and like stretching different ways and stuff like that compared to like what you're doing on paper. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting.
yeah, I think so. I think like it's it's so easy just to get like totally overwhelmed
Mhm.
by the void, as it were, right? It's like blank page. What do I do? What do I do? Um, but just moving things around, moving your arm around. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I think it's a really great experiment, and you may come up with a composition that you otherwise wouldn't have just by sort of allowing some lines to happen. Um, Again, um, there's a bit of a difference, I think, with these curved lines like an ellipse, and then these very sort of linear ones where they might sort of meet up. Interesting. Mm. But you may not, you may make nothing, while while you're just sort of warming up and like drawing, you know, nonsense lines. It's there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. What's also interesting, I think, too, just sort of compositionally, like we end up, uh, we do end up, kind of, really seeing if we're drawing straight lines or drawing, sort of diagonal ones. There is a difference to those as well. The straight lines are very, static is a good word for it. There's a certain sort of rhythm, almost slow, that it leads your eye, whereas the diagonal lines can be much, much quicker to like, right? It's more disconcerting in a certain way. Right. And then so one other thing that I think is also beneficial, and it's really difficult, I think too, is you can always like try to practice symmetry or sort of dividing. Yeah, you know what I mean. Um, you can try to practice this. It can be uh, it can be a good exercise. It may very well be it's something that like having tools to help you. Of course, in Procreate, there's like symmetry function, and there's always also draw paper. You could use a ruler, measure stuff, but sort of training. I think you're training your eye to start to see. Start to see those subtleties can be beneficial. Right.
Does anybody else like to just pull a concerned look when they're tattooing? Just kind of lean back and go, to any of their clients?
You
Like
mean
the
like
whole
like freak them out or something like that? Is that what you're talking
Just cause.
about? Freak out?
Establish dominance.
It's a power move.
Yeah.
just
I have unconsciously forgot that I was working on a person. And without thinking about it, I did something and I went, oh, damn. And they were like, what happened?
That's
It was fine. But anyway.
well, I would guess that we've all probably done it. Uh, but um, I guess that's something I try to avoid it usually. I tend to, but I think the thing that's real funny, it's like especially if you're drawing on your tablet all the time, is like double tapping on somebody. Like,
Oh, just
if you're
walking out.
drawing on them or like whoops, and like wait a minute, you go to tap.
Zoom in.
Yeah, that too. Um, right. So if we think about like kind of have this that triangle inside of put a rectangle around it. I'm thinking symmetry. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, it's not symmetrical, but this I'm thinking about it. I'm trying trying to capture it. And so, is there a way? Can you put that into perspective a bit?
Do you have to hold your finger down on the paper all the time? Because I find the difficulty.
Whatever's comfortable for you.
That's not comfortable.
Something like that. Because you can always you can always end up measuring. You're two-dimensional. You can always measure two-dimensional sort of form. Maybe start thinking about it in terms of 3D. You can kind of get that going on too. You could practice this idea of symmetry, thinking about it in 3 dimensions. Quick sketching, you know what I mean? Of course, you can get out the drafting tools and really make it like very formal and stuff. But however, doing some quick sketching, you might end up sort of like internalizing some of it and then being able to recognize it, and it could become quite useful for you. So anyway, there's just some warm up, just thinking about stuff, thinking about sketching and things. That's so.
In relevance to this, have you ever come across Professor Myron Barnstone? Myron Barnstone.
I'm writing it down.
He's amazing and very grumpy. He's amazing. Very grumpy.
You have like videos on YouTube. Is that?
Yep.
Is he
Sure.
is he like got a beard or something and like
He's an old white bald dude with a beard.
Yeah.
And he's up on the chalkboard and he talks about still lives and all kinds of things. Mm-hmm.
I do think I have seen him before. I think he teaches fundamentals, and that was like, that was a thing that I used to do, and so I'm always that's kind of what we're doing here, trying to like, so I'm interested in that. No, I love that. That's a great recommendation, Myron Barnstone. Yeah, I think I lost his name at some point, but I believe I've seen some of his lectures. They're very, I think they're very.
He was talking about classical drawing. He's a classical artist by trade, I guess, or his background. And when you were referring to straight lines, the horizontal or vertical, and how boring they are. The horizontal is the platform, the vertical shows the structure, but they're ugly, as he says. And then you throw the angles on there and it makes everything all pretty. that shows, direction and movement and composition stuff.
That is exactly what I wanted to talk about today. So I
Awesome.
found this chapter. This is in Juliet Aristides' book, Drawing Atelier, and so I figured I would share this with you all, read it, read a little bit of it, and you know, open up some conversation. So to begin with this first quote. This is chapter 3, right? Line. It's about line, two-dimensional dynamics. So, quote, the aim of the draftsman are first to develop in the highest degree the abstract beauty and significance possessed by lines in themselves, more or less independently of representation. So here's some of the chapter content. In its purest form, drawing is an abstraction. The lines are symbols used to recreate visual phenomena. In children's alphabet books or drawing books, simple vertical lines, horizontal, diagonal, or semicircular lines, are often presented as fundamental building blocks. Once the children master the creation of a few of these kinds of lines, they are encouraged to put them together to form patterns and shapes. So these 4 lines are used to make the letters of the alphabet, or such things as animals or spaceships. The distillation of the infinite number of lines into a few powerful directional lines gives us an entranceway into complex visual work. Not only is this concept useful for drawing individual objects, but it also provides a means for designing compositions. This aid to seeing has at times been formulated into a rigid schema that artists have followed. When it becomes too codified, this idea can become a barrier to seeing rather than an aid. However, when it is combined with directional observation, it becomes an indispensable point of departure. The use of line. We don't see lines in life, we see forms. When looking out a window, for instance, I see trees, grassy fields, cars, and a building. These lines we think we see in life are most commonly the edges or boundaries of greater forms. We observe an outline around a curve of a figure model's shoulder, for example. However, this perceived line is not a line at all, only the appearance of one caused by the juxtaposition of a curve of the form against the background. The line in its purest sense is implied everywhere in nature and found nowhere. It is a mathematical concept that does not exist, but rather denotes placement and direction. The ancient Pythagorean brotherhood, founded by the Greek philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras in 529 BCE, had a secret symbol called the tetractys. It's shown over here to the left. This symbol could represent many different things, one of which was the mysterious transformation of spirit to matter. The single point at the top of the pyramid indicates a position. The 2 points below, when connected, reference the creation of a line, one dimension. Connecting all 3 of these points delineates a plane, 2-dimensioned. Adding a 4th point creates a solid form, the pyramid, 3 dimensions. In this example, the single dot at the beginning of the progression represents spirit, and the final pyramid represents matter. Italian Renaissance theorist, artist, architect, and writer Leon Battista Alberti reiterated this familiar progression in the opening of his well-known book on painting. The tetractys could represent the drawing process. The point happens when the artist puts his pencil to the paper and makes a dot. The artist moves the pencil and stops at the next point, lifts his pencil, he has made a line. And as he continues to draw and adds more lines, they become less abstract and eventually form a 3-dimensional shape. Adding even more lines gives volume to the image, articulating the third dimension with light and shade, and in this way, a drawing is created. But we must first start with a line. Drawing a line is a bit like playing a game of tennis. When a ball is hit into the air, the player does not have to wait for the ball to hit the ground before running to the spot where he expects the ball to land. The ball is on a particular trajectory, and the eye follows the direction of the ball more than it follows the ball itself. Likewise, when a line begins in a work of art, it invites the eye to continue in a particular direction, whether or not the line itself continues. A line segment moves the eye in a particular direction, whether or not the line itself continues. When drawing a line, the artist places the tip of his pencil on the paper, which creates a dot. Then, much like our tennis player, he focuses not on the line itself, but where the line will end. The 2 points, which represent the ends of the line, become more important than the line itself. Working point to point keeps the artist focused on bigger line directions and helps create the feeling of movement in a work. So, the concept of leading the eye through the picture is integral to the concept of design. Rather than copy exactly what we see, artists manipulate nature and express themselves emotionally, giving weight and emphasis to what they think is important. This ordering of the image into significant hierarchy of pattern is an essential component of a great work. It reveals that there is a designer or a captain at the helm. Artists exercise their knowledge of visual phenomena by using strong line directions to lead the eye to key areas in the drawing. For example, if the artist puts a vertical line in the lower part of the picture, the viewer will unconsciously search for the continuation of the line in the upper part of the picture. Right, and so here we see some examples. This is the author's the diagram, right, using all of these straight lines. But in order to sort of develop what's going to become very, curvaceous, like objects, some sort of circular star shape, and then a gourd or something like that. What is it? It says gourd, rose hips. But yeah, I think sort of looking at this sort of relationship between these straight lines and these curved ones, I think it's can be really powerful in your compositions. Can be really powerful in how it is that you sort of you might analyze the work of others, whether you something you like about it, or something that is unsettling for you. Anyway, in addition to using line to create movement and guide our eye, artists use lines to create rhythm and mood. The tension, resolution, and repetition of various line directions keeps the work interesting and varied. Tension is established when a line or movement is opposed by another element. At its simplest level, tension breaks up the perfect unity of one by adding a second element. Resolution is achieved when a binding element, the mean, reconciles the dynamic between the two elements, creating not just a new form, but harmony. The two individual elements are joined in a relationship when an artist determines which line directions are emerging as dominant in a work of art. He can repeat those angles to create a theme. By consciously limiting certain line directions and repeating others, he will be able to heighten the effects or gestures of his composition, infusing breadth and power to his work. So here, the author Juliet Aristides, she talks about like these different types of lines, straight lines, curved lines, and how they're sort of they're used for particular characteristics, emotional characteristics as well. So there's another example coming up here. I'm gonna try my best to pronounce this name as well as I can. So straight lines can be seen in Ichi Ira Kutai Insui, their painting of the courtesan Sagawa of Matsubaya, have been an important tool in the artist's repertoire. They function as a vector or an indication of movement in a particular direction. They're also one of the most useful devices artists employ to help them identify an overarching design and simplify complex forms. Straight lines are used more frequently than curved lines for drawing because they're easier for the brain, for the mind to comprehend. The curve is very difficult to copy directly, while straight line relationships can be easily measured. So, I'm going to back up just a smidge so you can see both of them. Here's the analysis. The analysis here, and then we can also see, this is the composition. It is a bit, I think, sort of unconscious, right? When you look at this, I don't feel like it automatically registers all of this, alignment. But when we look at the grid that's applied to this image, you can see that all of these, the curved forms are, they really correspond to an overall sort of relationship, parallelism. And again, seen in this way, we can also really understand all of the strong diagonals that are happening. So there's probably more, sort of analysis that could be done here. You could think about right here, where all of these like combs that are going through the hair, whatever those are called, I'm not sure, but where where they're all sort of kind of intersecting at a one point, and then they're radiating out as well in diagonals. Again, a strong visual sort of element that brings the viewer's eyes into the composition. But yeah, just here's an example of it where sort of we're seeing all of this grid, and then of course there's going to be this sort of very emotional curvaceousness that's that has ordering to it, right? And so Aristides goes on to talk about that. Here's where she talks about how to think how straight lines and stuff are, have a bit of sort of concept to them. So agree with this. Take it for what it's worth. Agree with it or not, but it's interesting nonetheless. So here's what she says: the straight line is imbued with symbolic attributes that denote moral uprightness. We think of a pillar of strength, plumb line of truth, or the straight and narrow path. The straight line is woven into the imagery of our literature and media to represent order, strength, stability, and constancy. The love of the straight line is a love of reason and intellectual purity. And so here's another analysis. Jacopo Ponteromo, Study for an Angel. And so we can also see this very sort of elegant curve S form, several S forms that are sort of moving throughout the composition. But of course there's a grid over top of it. Perhaps that was more for transferring the design to some degree when it whatever this study was used for. It's from the 16th century, so it's it might very well have been used for like a larger fresco, or you can imagine what it was possibly. This was a means to an end, right? This it's called a study, but it would have been a part of this was just the preparation for doing something more. But we can appreciate it, I think, for its aesthetic merit here. But again, there are these alignments that are powerful, and so Rubens. Do you all like Rubens? This one is, I believe it's called The Descent into Hell. And so here's the Rubenesque. That's that term, Rubenesque, if you've ever heard it before. This is what it means. These figures are Rubenesque. They're very very full-bodied figures. Makes me think of another painter, Jenny Saville. It's a more contemporary painter. I've seen her work. But yeah, just sort of like, very interesting bodies and stuff. But here's the analysis of this painting, and I'll give it a little bit of a zoom. So again, hopefully you can see there's a lot of alignment that's happening. All the bodies, all the forms, they have a lot of curve, if you like. They're very curvaceous. However, there's an ordering to there's an ordering to this madness, right? It just kind of feels like everything is tumbling and stuff by design. However, there's like underneath it, there's like a foundational structure of lines that move our eye around, right, through the composition. Not only kind of like uh, sort of vertically, horizontally, but also in this diagonal direction, sort of up and down, back and forth, and then of course like around these curvaceous forms that we see. And so curved lines, right? According to its formal mathematical definition, a straight line is actually a subset of a curved line, just as a circle is a subset of an ellipse. A straight line is a curve generated by a point moving in one direction. A curved line is a curve generated by a point moving in a continuously changing direction. The use of curved lines is well illustrated in Jacopo Ponteromo's study of an angel for the Annunciation. We saw that one earlier. And another artist who embodies this love of the curve is El Greco, whose energetic curved figures mirror the swirling clouds in his landscapes. I don't know if there's any El Greco examples in this chapter, but it's very interesting paintings. At the Art Institute of Chicago, they have quite a few El Grecos, so they're very beautiful. They're highly stylized, generally religious, Christian themes, a lot of portraits of Christ and these sorts of things. But again, this sort of very energetic and also painterly sort of felt renditions of figures. It's very interesting. So curved lines provide art with the spark of life. They are organic, energetic, childlike, and dynamic, and are often used to contrast with straight lines, with the former being used to emphasize emotional aspects of the world and the latter being used to emphasize intellectual aspects. This balance of emotional and intellectual has oscillated throughout the art history depending on the times. Rococo from 1715 to 1774 roughly, a style of art popular with French aristocracy, was playful, light, and decorative, capturing the mood of the day. The pendulum swung, and along came neoclassicism, roughly 1750 to 1850. These, you can notice, like these also correspond right to the French Revolution too, right? There's a relationship there. With its high, stark moral tone of the Brewing Revolution, there was there. Or to cite another example, the fluid, curvilinear lines of Art Nouveau, the 1890s to 1900s, was based on designs found in nature. By comparison, the aesthetic of the Bauhaus movement, 1919 to 1933, was industrial and austere. We talked about the Bauhaus a little bit on, Drawing for Tattooers. It was in the video titled, Learning about Gestalt Techniques, or Gestalt Principles, rather. And again, you can see the dates for the Bauhaus. It does correspond to like the beginning of World War II. Once World War II happened, the Nazis weren't having anything to do with the Bauhaus artists. Bauhaus was a school in Germany, and they really sort of developed many of the aesthetic sort of sensibilities and that we see in graphic design even today. So a lot of graphic design is really based on these Gestalt principles and sort of some of the innovations that the psychological innovations that were pioneered here through like Bauhaus aesthetics. Interestingly, also kind of relating back to tattoo, education and thinking about Guy Aitchison's curriculum as well, he talks about the difference between, what he refers to as anti-flow and flow. And so if you can, you think about the human body, vertical lines and horizontal lines that sort of cut across the body, that would be anti-flow, right? And these are these same sort of vertical, horizontal grids that we've been looking at all day. But then the flow is always these curvaceous, curved lines that are going to give like emotion and all kinds of spark of life and this sort of thought. Um, and so this is totally applicable. This all these ideas that we're talking about as far as like these foundational lines that move the eye around, they become sort of the skeleton of what comes next. And a lot of times we're thinking about the juxtaposition of adding curves to some of these really straight lines. So interesting. Again, this can feel, maybe you already know all this, right? And maybe this is something that's like very intuitive for you, but I think the more that you can start to see it and realize it in the work of others as well as your own work, it can be, I think, it can become a really powerful, asset to consider. So here, just a little bit more. We'll finish up. We'll finish up now. Just a little bit more on the Peter Paul Rubens painting. The work of Peter Paul Rubens is inextricably bound with 17th century Baroque art. The energy, movement, and power conveyed in his narrative paintings were found not only in his dynamic subject matter, but also in the abstract design of his compositions. The armature of his works of art was often based on the diagonal, commonly called the Baroque diagonal. In this painting, this drawing for the painting, The Fall of the Damned, we see pyramids of figures tumbling and falling through space. 2 Baroque diagonals are successfully repeated all the way through the image. In fact, these diagonals are actually echo the diagonals that cut across the rectangular frame itself, forming an X. And so now that we've been informed, that we can clearly see this X shape that's, the analysis of the painting is showing it to us. But that didn't just happen like it didn't just sort of emerge. This would have been like very carefully sort of planned. Again, kind of echoing back to the beginning of this chapter that we were reading. When things get too rigid, too codified as like this is the way it has to be, it becomes boring and dead. But of course, just like our bones, they are rigid and they do have a particular sort of character to them. They're alive, and in part they're alive because of all of the flesh that gets sort of placed on top of them. And I kind of believe that this is a good way to sort of think about this, this sort of thing, right? It's composed. There's a real basic sort of simplicity to the composition, but again, it's sort of fleshed out, if you like, in very interesting ways. Right. Well, I could go on and on and on. There's again that sort of radiating point, which is so fascinating. It's just a great book, really. Oh, really should we could see this. This one by Bellows. Very famous painting. Likely you've seen it before, but if you haven't, here's the drawing, the study for the painting, and then here's the analysis, just right here over to the right. And so we can really, do you see this when you look at this? Does everybody see this, simple sort of geometrical thing, triangle, square, circle? I mean, when it's pointed out, it's like, oh, I can't unsee it, but this one's so interesting to me too, because it's like, we've got this, we all know what like a ring looks like, for fighting, boxing or wrestling or what have you. Here, like the ropes that would be, in front of them, presumably, right? They've been removed, and it just allows us to sort of enjoy the composition. Would the composition be the same if it had those, those horizontal ropes that would presumably be in front of our viewpoint? It's almost like you can see here, like evidence, like maybe they were there, but got some lost. the legs, but maybe opted to not, have them, so that way it's like more visually appealing. Again, that whole idea of like accentuating some things and then suppressing other things. But again, I don't think that you're going to get this sort of relationship of, sort of this geometry to your compositions by happenstance. I think it's going to come out of like some careful planning for using it, but then also, like this leg kind of comes through it, cuts through that. You could argue that it's not there. Really, there isn't this triangle present, but again, it is, right? So interesting. How do you like apply this sort of thing and then allow yourself to have the freedom to be able to sort of do what you think is right for the piece? And I think that's a challenge that we all face. Yeah, just a great chapter online. Block in. This is something that, when we talk about, we start to do our figure studies and stuff, I try to reference is this idea of, instead of following the contour, the sort of the curve of the figure, right? Perhaps looking for, sort of this vertical alignment, the horizontal, the verticals, before you put in the curves, I think can be a really effective way to go. And just like we saw with the study of the gourds earlier, it really can, I think, help you create something that's that has some balance, right? But then the emotion and the sort of the feeling and stuff, the weight of it comes from all of the curves and stuff. So yeah, I think. Oh, here's one more. I just love looking at the pictures too. You know what I mean? Like it's. But that's the thing about art books. You know what I mean? It's like you can get lost in the pictures and just sort of looking at just at the pictures and stuff. I've always done that. But as I've gotten older, I've really started to read them more. I think there's a whole other sort of dimension that you pick up from the reading of them. In the newest issue of Jar, that's Jeff Gogwe's industry magazine. If you're not subscribed to Jar, you should definitely get that magazine. It's a fantastic periodical. Beautiful images, and it's all about tattoo culture. It's very cool. But anyway, there's a small sort of editorial in there. Jeff Gogwe talks about Andrew Loomis's Drawing for All It's Worth. That's a really great book too. He sort of admitted what I just did. Like, he's like, I bought this book for my daughter a long time ago, and she was going to art school, and I thought all the pictures were great, but then I finally read it. And it was, it was this amazing experience. And so, yeah, I encourage you to read it. Sometimes for me, especially for me, it's like it takes, multiple readings to really kind of break into getting closer to what's being said. It can be difficult upon the first reading to sort of fully get everything that's all the nuance and stuff that's being said in a work of written work. Same thing with a drawing, right? Same thing when we look at the drawing and kind of the reason why you could look at it again and again is because you're always finding something new. It's probably the thing about great movies and great shows and stuff too. You're always going to sort of see something new or sort of something that you missed the first time, and that can be very rewarding experience. Yes, that's okay. That's it. Let me stop because otherwise we'll go on and on and on. And but I really appreciate everybody, checking that out with me, and I hope it relates to some of our our exercises we were doing earlier. It's like might seem almost
That was great.
what the hell.
It was fascinating.
Loved it.
Cool.
Really good.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Well, it's more. I don't like to think. So I don't like to think about things as justification all the time. Like I had a customer asking me about like tattoo prices and stuff, and I'm like, I've got that in my mind. Like, all right, don't justify it. Of course, there's overhead to think about. There's like, I gotta split it with the shop. I gotta, you know what I mean? I gotta pay for, my supplies. I gotta pay for the gas to get here. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Uh, there's something, you give more than that, even though, like, whatever you charge, it's like you're gonna give them more. You're giving them more value, you know. And so that's what I'm hoping that our exercises can ultimately do as well. Is like give more value than they seem. And it's like why would you spend your time doing it? Um, and so rather than justify it, it's like, well, just here's a peek at what's been going on for a long time. Um, and it does relate to also to the things that we talk about on reinventing. Um, so, but anyway, I talked too much. I just wanted to share that all with you. Drink.
It's
was
it's important stuff, to just to like, I guess how do you um not reinvent the wheel, the reverse engineer paintings and drawings and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Just because, yeah, it just brings in different aspects and views of like things that I would, of course I would, would never think of those things, like the rhythm of why this is here and why that's there, and then like it's just all those little things, like there's so much to paintings, like classical paintings, like there's just chapters and chapters and chapters on like single paintings. It's crazy. It's so cool. Yeah.
No, I definitely agree. But I also, I really hope that it's, like you were saying, helps you think about your own work in a different way,
Mhm.
So again, like having a plan in place can be very valuable. Um, and even though, kind of went on and on about like how things don't just happen, you know what I mean? It's kind of there needs to have this plan in place, whatever.
Mhm.
It might be interesting to sort of go back and look at your own work and sort of you could do that analysis and be like, well, what did emerge, right? There might, and then having sort of having rhythms, having like these strong sort of diagonals that help you know lead the eye around. Maybe you did do it, and it was sort of unconsciously, it did come out of what it was you were doing. Um, and maybe that's the reason why you like some of there's work you do that you like better than other pieces, right? There's work that you favor, like this one turned out really well, and this one was like real shit, whatever the case may be. um uh, that might be a fun and interesting exercise, to sort of to critique yourself and to think about like uh well, what were some of the foundations that I did use. Maybe there was some of it that was intentional. Maybe you did start with a curved sort of line, and that helped you develop the whole thing. Maybe there was a Baroque diagonal, right? There was an angle. There was an angle that you used that really kind of set the tone for everything. Um, but there isn't a formula, right? This is like the knowledge of nature. Um, it is a technology, maybe, rather than saying that this is a specific thing. You're always going to get this result if you put in X, Y, Z. I think you could probably try to put in the same things. You're always going to get something a little different every time. So there's something interesting, I think, about that. Um, yeah. So
fascinating.
thank you. No, I got some good advice. You know, share a chapter, share some reading and stuff like that. I think that's it's we're all kind of we're all observing the other. We're all like we're learning from others. We're also we don't create art in a vacuum. We don't create tattoos in a vacuum. Like it, there has to be some recognition at some point from others and stuff. Even when you say it's like I do it for myself, you know what I mean? People say that sometimes. I'm like, you know, uh, I raise the eyebrow a little bit. I'm like, okay, of course you have to, you should be doing things that you feel like almost like there's all like that's a freedom that you have. Like I feel obligated to do this and so I choose it, and that's my freedom to choose this obligation. But at a certain point, right, it has to be, there's like a even if you're, kind of other to yourself, right? Even if you're what do you think about it? That's like another part of your self-conscious sort of looking at what it is some other part of you did and try to judge it. So it's always wrapped up in it. The reception of our work is an integral part of the work. How it's interpreted by everybody else. You want to try to put this intention into it, but ultimately it's not up to you. Once you make it and put it out there in the world, it's like its own being. It's like it's a kid. It's your spiritual creation. It's out there in the world doing things that you don't have any control over. It's, um, and there's something beautiful about that. But it's also terrifying too, right? um, this is this has really been super enjoyable for me. I really love meeting with you all every week. I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to to speak or to share anything else that you'd like to before we wrap it up. So let me open the floor for you all.
Oh God.
I like how like with the whole like uh reverse engineering like the paintings and everything like that. It's not so much being like in your own drawings and paintings. It's like being like, oh, it just doesn't work. It's just like whatever. We'll just start on something new. You're like, oh, that's really cool. That works. That's awesome. But it's more of like, well, why does that work, or why doesn't that work? So you're able to take any of your drawings and paintings of your own and being like, well, it doesn't work because this and this, so I need to change this and this and this, and then it makes it work, instead of just like being like, meh, it doesn't work, and then just like getting rid of it. So it makes everything a lot more malleable, a lot more yeah, a lot more tangible when it comes to like, oh, it doesn't work. Well, it's gonna work because I know how to fix this and this and this. So like it's cool. Makes everything a lot more possible, I guess, in a sense. Yeah, it's cool.
Is it painful for anybody to what I just said? Is it painful to go over the work? Is that just me? Is that, is that just me?
I think it's interesting thinking about using these lines to set up your composition as opposed to, I usually think about the lines when it comes to like the actual edges of like the actual finished piece, but thinking about using them to like almost subconsciously divert someone's attention is something that I think is really helpful to think about.
Absolutely. This is kind of how cover-ups work, right?
Mm.
Like, so we talk about like, I do cover-ups all the time. Some are more successful than others, but I think it's like when you can divert the viewer's attention away from cover-up, that's when it's most, even the person, even it's their cover-up, right? The more that you can sort of like say, hey, look over here, that ends up, I think, being, again, it's about cleverness. You know what I mean? You're being clever, but also uh, that's really kind of what leads to this expression we've been talking about all day. I think your emphasizing certain things and suppressing others, and that's how um, you're helping people see. That makes sense, right? You're helping them see. You're directing them to look at this, see this, and then hopefully that opens up something for them.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, thank you.
I'd like to say I'm sorry that every time I take it off of mute, my rooster crows. And so my bad. I keep trying to mute it. I don't want to interrupt. It was a great episode. I learned a whole bunch.
Yes.
That was awesome. Yeah, thank you. And I like the idea about the cover-ups and how you go about making adjustments on those by directing the eye.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And
Thank
don't-
you.
don't-
And I don't mind the rooster. It's just, it's like that's what we get with this, like this, guerrilla thing that we're doing, this Gonzo style like art show that we do here. It's awesome. And I also, that's the thing about it. I'm talking about stuff that I'm working on. Like, I don't have this down at all. Like, and those are, and that's the time I think often, like, that I feel like when I don't remember some of these basic things, it's like it doesn't turn out as well as I feel like it could, and it's even hard to recognize too. But I don't think it's again I'm like I don't think that it's gonna turn out perfectly, but I do like to take that seriously. It's like it's almost like you can't go into it thinking, you don't want to be a perfectionist, obviously, right? That can be toxic, problematic, but taking it seriously, almost like this delusion of like, well, maybe I could, I think I can, whatever. There's something about that might lead to a better result, or a one that's um, more effective in some way, or one that can start to generate more, creating a thing that can generate more than you put into it. Right, this excess of energy, of beauty, the sort of surplus of the thing itself, whatever it is that you make, somehow, whatever it is you did, now it's like it's generating its own energy. It's somehow in a metaphysical way, it's its own sort of spirit, which is cool. And I know I experienced that when I'm in front of great works of art. Tattoo's the same thing. You're confronted with this incredible tattoo, and it's like, the body itself is always more than than the sum of its parts, other than the sum of its parts. And so sometimes, work of art, tattoo, interchangeably, right? I use that term interchangeably. It can become more than whatever was put into it. And I like that. So, well, again, great episode, gang. I'm so honored that you could come. Please come back, because next week we're gonna do something completely different. I promise. We'll come up with something fun. We'll draw some stuff. We'll talk art. We'll talk shop. It's always a great time. So let's do some sign-offs, and we'll get on with our day, because I know everybody's got all kinds of fantastic projects to work on. Creature, can we start with you? Will you give us your sign-off, please?
Creatures Cave everywhere. Thanks for letting us participate. It was a wonderful episode. My wife, she's on vacation this week, so she got to hang out and draw. Here, show your book. Put your book up. You can do it. See, she's drawing too.
Awesome.
So, but yes, Creatures Cave everywhere. Thank you very much, everybody. It's nice to see all of you.
Thank you so much. That really was. It's great to see you again, and I'm so glad your wife could join us and draw along. That's all. That's a big part of this, right? I hope like everybody's like drawing and stuff. That's um, it's a big part of the mission, right? Love to draw, and then it's going to be, like drawing for itself is also, is like, know, is a goal, And so, anyway, so happy you could come. Thank you, Creature. Kyle, give us your sign offs.
My name is Kyle Olson. I tattoo out of Trinity Art Collective in Tucson, Arizona. If you want to get a hold of me, you can reach out at trinityartcollective.com, or if you're on the Instagrams, you can do Olson_tattoos, OLSON. And Creature, don't worry about the rooster. We do say everybody's invited, everybody's welcome to join. So he wanted to join today, so it's all good. And James, thank you for today's episode. Like, very useful information. Like, I definitely want to go back through my own drawings and be like, well, why does this work and why doesn't that work? Because like you said, the whole subconscious part of things, like, just like, is there like a natural rhythm that's set up? I want to reverse engineer stuff and just kind of relook things. So like super useful information. So thank you for it. Thank you.
Well, that's very like kind of you to say. But that's what I mean. I think we could look at like we could see it in your work, Kyle, and I think too. Like I'm thinking about like the swan sleeve, especially. I know we can find all sorts of really interesting, sort of visual devices that you use, and I think I know you're that you're somewhat conscious of it, maybe more than you admit, because your work is fantastic. So I can't wait to see these there's so many projects that you're working on. I follow Kyle on Instagram. I love keeping up with all your new things. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts with us and stuff too. It's an honor to have you. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Elise.
It's me. Hello, I'm Elise Morrow. I am a Chicago-based 3D artist, and you can find me at Elise Morrow Visuals on Instagram and ArtStation, and I have my website, elisemorrowvisuals.com.
That's awesome.
And thank you for today. That really was fascinating.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate that very much. And
I wanted to say something real fast, if I may.
Yes, of course.
She hasn't been picking her teeth this whole time. I looked over, I thought she was picking her teeth. She'd been on camera and we're watching it. And I'm all like, you're on camera, you're picking your teeth. And she says, no. She's trying to take this little teeny tiny thing apart with her teeth. And I'm like, what are you doing? So funny. So,
is that a pencil piece?
yeah. So
Sorry.
all right. So there we go.
That's well, so you can keep drawing probably, right? That's the
Right, exactly.
Suffering
You gotta
for
do
your
what you
art
gotta
is
do.
understandable.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you for coming. It really is great. And Elise, thank you so much for coming today. It's always great to see you. And of course, can't wait to see your newest projects. I know, so like Elise just graduated from college and is making your debut in the working world, and so I'm so excited to see how
Thank you.
things progress for you. So and it's always great to to hear your thoughts on stuff. So thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm James. This has been Drawing for Tattooers. We want to, thank Guy Atchison one more time. He's, obviously with us in spirit. Thanks, Guy, for the platform. Yeah, thanks, Guy. And also, for Reinventing the Tattoo. It's a great educational book. I know that I had my first copy of the Reinventing the Tattoo book in 2000, 2001, something like that. And I think what I recognized in the book was what I recognized when I went to art school was all of the fundamentals that he teaches in that book. So there's really invaluable stuff in it. Now it's a digital, format, and it's always being updated. And of course, like I remember the pictures being fantastic. I had the binder, so some of you who may be watching, maybe you had that binder. It was like it had these pictures in it. You're like, sometimes you saw some of them in the magazines, but it was like had pictures that weren't in the magazines as well. So it was sort of like it was a very special thing. Anyway, you get on the digital, the new digital format of Reinventing the Tattoo. There's like just amazing work in there that you don't always see everywhere. So anyway, and analysis, kind of like we were just sort of showing, like there's all this very helpful analysis, sort of thinking about how do these things get made. So it's not exactly a how to tattoo, but it is a certainly like art related content that helps tattooers become, you know, help you become who you are and also become a composer to some degree, right? That you can start to compose your own designs, which is of course something that um, you probably want to do, right? If you're an artist, you're a tattooer, you really want to become, you know, confident and skillful in composing your own sort of compositions. So anyway, thanks, Guy. It's an honor to be here, and thank you again for doing this. Oh, right. So anyway, I also just real quick, I'm gonna this yeah. So I'll share this. I am gonna be. Hold on. Maybe I can. Maybe I can do it.
I think I
How about
can.
this one? I think I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's
So
great
I'm gonna
multitasker.
be tattooing at the Fort Wayne Tattoo Festival, August 11th through the 13th. So if you're in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and you'd like to come get a tattoo, let me know. But of course, there's going to be all kinds of fantastic tattooers there. Really looking forward to this show, and so this is my next upcoming event, and so I wanted to give it a plug. Um, But yeah, after that shameless self promotion, we'll end the show for today. Thank you all for joining us. This has been Drawing for Tattooers on Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Network. Thanks again to Elise, Kyle, and Preacher's wife, for joining us. So great to see you. Yeah. Anyway, join us next week, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, for another exciting episode of Drawing for Tattooers. Happy drawing, everybody, and we'll see you.